All right, glad to be joined now by an actual personal friend of mine and a really good softball coach, Coach Zack Graham. Coach Graham, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Coach Parker. I appreciate this, man. This is a neat opportunity, not only for myself, but for anybody who wants to take part in your Parker resources. And, there may be something we should discuss or talk about today that they can pick up using their programs. And that's what this is all about, which is very
Absolutely. I was telling you before we came on how I've really been impressed with the baseball and softball and basketball coaches, some of the people I've talked to, because I didn't coach those sports. I was the athletic director. I've been over them, but I didn't coach them. So I didn't work with kids in those sports. And it's just been interesting how so many of these topics that we're talking about are really the same, because we're not getting into schemes right now. This topic's not about the scheme. That working with parents in your program will be the same in soccer, basketball, football, baseball. There's different numbers and there's a little different dynamic with boys and girls and all that. But the truth is the principles that make it work are the same. And so I've always said that, but it's been nice to hear the coaches of different sports saying that. So look forward to talking to you. Before we get started, tell everybody, kind of where you got your start, where you are now, how you got to where you are.
Well, coming out of college, I was hired at Chapel Hill High School. Coach Mick Harper wanted me to come be the pitching coach on the baseball side of things, which I, gladly accepted. And, over the course of, about a year, he taught me into doing softball, which at first, to be honest with you, I told him he was crazy. I ain't coaching girls. That ain't what I'm doing. They can't play ball and all this stuff. I was that guy, 15 years ago. And I'm being honest about that. But, I finally agreed, and I started working with him on the softball side of things at Chapel Hill. He said, just give me 1 year. Just give me 1 year. If you don't like it, you just stick with baseball. I said, all right, we'll do it. We'll make it work. And the rest is history, man. I fell in love with the girls and the game. It's been an amazing. Obviously, I assisted him at Chapel Hill for about 5 years. And then the head softball position came open at Alexander High School, where I've been the head coach there for the last 9 years. And it's been the most rewarding time professionally in my career. And then had an opportunity to join Oconee County this year, coming up for the 2020 season. I hope it gets here. I hope this Corona stuff don't mess us up. But I'm excited about the opportunity ahead to join the Oconee County school system, the Oconee County Warriors, the softball program there, and kind of lead this team to some more state championships, I hope.
Absolutely. Well, they got a good program up there, and I know you'll be a good addition to them. That's some great guys leading that county and that district, and you'll be a good one with them. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of what you guys do in your program to work with parents. And working with parents, when we say work with parents, we want to really talk about the first thing in working with parents, which is the best way to handle parents is to be preemptive. Now, what I did was I took about 10 topics that I thought were good across all sports, and I kind of studied them because, as you know, I ain't had as much to do lately as I used to.
Right.
So I studied these things, and I said, where do good programs do to handle these things? Well, people that are good with parents, what it kept coming back to was when the parent was frustrated with you, the truth is there's very little you can do about it at that moment. It's all about what did you do before that allowed you to have this relationship with this parent so you can tell them something they probably don't want to hear. So really anything you guys do in your program, whether it's talking about your culture, how you build support, things like that, are all indirectly going to fit into handling parents, because anything you can do to be preemptive, meaning doing something ahead of time to build that relationship is going to help you. So we felt like if I say the word preemptive, that makes sense to me. But if people didn't understand what I meant by that, these are things you would do with someone before you had to tell them something they didn't want to hear. So let's pretend that a parent is coming in and they're mad that their kid's not playing left field or shortstop or whatever it is. there's really nothing you can say to them. There's a right and a wrong way to handle that, but you're not going to make it better necessarily. It's going to be about what is their relationship to Zach Graham. Has Zach Graham always been honest with them? Has he been consistent? Does he communicate to me? Has he promoted the good things he's done? So, when you look at these things, what stands out? And then tell us a little bit about what you did at Alexander and what you plan on doing at Oconee to do these things.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Coach, with the relationship factor. I think in most circumstances where I have had to be brutally honest at times with parents, it boils down to the relationship factor. And it doesn't even necessarily the relationship factor with them. It's the relationship I have with their kid. If they know that I love their kid and that I have their kid's best interest at heart, then it's a little argue with me about whether their kid's in the 3-hole or playing shortstop or whatever, because they know I'm doing what's best not only for their kid, but for all however many involved in the program, which is could be anywhere from 25 to 30 kids more than likely. That's the biggest factor here. As far as I have the 24-hour rule too, where it's, when you start talking about something that they want to discuss that they're not happy with, it gives everybody a chance to cool down a little bit and say what's really on their mind versus, something that's, just they're emotional at the time. So, right. The communication factor, like you said, being preemptive, I really think is really the very first thing on your list to build relationships. If I have relationships with their kids, it's going to be a lot easier for me to explain.
Yeah, I think if you, the thing is, this is the things that parents are going to go to immediately. One, honesty, meaning I would rather tell somebody something they didn't want to hear in the football terms. I would rather tell them in March, make them mad in March, then lie to them in March, tell them how great they were going to be, and then in August make them mad just because I didn't feel like dealing with it in March.
Right.
And that's something I think you got to do. Consistency is you can't say, well, I got a 24-hour rule until Coach Parker's daughter plays, and then I'll talk to him because I like him. I mean, there does have to be a 24-hour rule for everybody. And, that's sometimes harder. That's easier said than done, but there does have to be if this is how it is for, one kid, then it's kind of got to be for everybody. And then the go-to thing I got as the athletic director, when somebody wanted to complain about a coach, it was always they either lied to them, they're letting some kids do stuff than others. Of course, some of this was true and some wasn't, by the way. But this was what they say. And they always say, well, they don't communicate. Whether you do or don't communicate, that's one of the go-to lines. So have you really communicated these expectations of these parents? Even if it was at a parent meeting, can you say in a meeting with all of us, hey, I sat there in the beginning of season meeting and told you guys there was going to be a 24-hour rule. If you can check those boxes that you communicated your expectations, things will go well. But I really like, kind of feel like you can get off on negative talk like this. But I really like this last one, and I put it last on purpose because I like to talk about it the most, which is you really got to promote the good things. And what I mean is you can love all the kids the same. You can only play 9 of them at a time, but you can love all of them the same. They all got a birthday. They all got something good. They make straight A's, put their picture up on the Twitter. They did something good at practice player of the week, whatever it is. Make something up where you can promote these kids, all of them. Because then when something bad happens, you can say, hey, look, I like all the kids. Look what we're doing. So tell us a little bit about some of the good things you guys do. I know y'all do some good things with teacher relations. Y'all do some good, brag a little bit on some of the things you guys do in your softball program to promote good things.
Well, what I've done the last 9 years is it's all built on itself at Alexander, and I plan on taking all this to Oconee County. You know, when you say promote the good things, man, we do a lot of good things. And, you know, one of the biggest ones is, like you said, promoting the kids, either via social media, the newspaper. Derek Mahone here in Douglas County does a great job promoting our kids. And, you know, I'm always in constant contact with him. And I plan on doing the same at Oconee with the sports writers up there. But, you know, it's, you know, the parents and, you know, they want to see their kids in the paper and their name in the paper and, you know, those sorts of things, whether they played or not. And I always try to highlight some kids that did some things either during the week or during the game that didn't necessarily, maybe not affected the game as far as win or loss on the scoreboard, being on the field, but including those kids that have been working their tail off that help the team get to the spot that we're at. So, you know, that's a big one. You know, you want everybody involved, and that's, you know, like you said, you can only play 9 at a time, and I tell the parents this on parent night every single year. You know, they want the best 8 playing and their kid. They don't want the best 9. That's the way it is, and that'll never change. And as a coach, you got to know that going into it. So, and I'm fine with that. But you know, promoting the kids, you know, in some cool nights that we do that involve the kids, it involves administration, it involves community. You know, obviously senior night's a big one for everyone. You know, that gets all those seniors out there, and it's a great night for their families, and the community comes out and administration's there. We do a big cancer awareness night. That's always a great night. You know, I lost my mom to cancer a couple years ago, and you know, I honor her, but it's also to honor, you know, everyone that's been touched by cancer, which is a really cool night. And then something that we're going to be doing at Oconee County too is we're going to do a superhero teacher night, where each kid on the team gets to pick their favorite teacher. And then earlier in the week before we play that game, they're going to get their T-shirt size. We're going to present them with a T-shirt at school. They can wear it that day. Hopefully my administration, Mr. Yancey up there, will, you know, let the teachers have like a jeans pass that day. They can wear jeans, put on their superhero T-shirt, and then we're going to present them at the game. It brings the community in. It brings the, you know, the paper guys there, man, and they spread it all over. And it's just something good, man. It's something good to, you know, promote what we do in education. And at the end of the day, that's the biggest part of this whole thing is the education.
Yeah.
So it is, you know, it's not it's not a requirement. You know, it's something that I'm trying to find the word that I need to use for this, but it's definitely it's not something that you have to be doing. It's a privilege, and you know, that you got to get the education in on the education side of things first, and then bring those teachers in is something I think we should all be doing.
Yeah, I agree. I've always thought that was a cool thing you guys did. I knew about that. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, well, I thought I was watching something about dealing with parents. What does that got to do with it? Well, you missed the complete point. You need to rewind and start over, because what I'm telling you is handling these parents when they're frustrated, or working with parents and having positive parent relationships, has everything to do with all the other things you're doing. So it's important that you, when we do all this for these teachers, when we do all this for the seniors, when we do all this for whatever, we're showing that it's more than just who wins or loses the game. We're not just trying to do that. Of course, we want to win, but we care about all these kids. And I just think it's so easy for parents to miss that. And I'll be honest with you, I think, you know, it says when a parent problem arises, these things, I'll start off with one of these. You know, you said everybody wants their, you know, it's a go-to coach line in football. Everybody wants the best 10 and theirs to play, or, you know, in baseball and softball, the best 8 and theirs to play, and basketball, the best 4 plus theirs to play. That's so true, by the way. But you know what? When people say that, though, I don't even say that as a negative. Like, I've kind of given up on that being a negative thing. Why wouldn't they want their kid to play? You know, I'd tell them, if I was you, I'd want your kid to play. I mean, it doesn't offend me that they want their kid to play. I think maybe when I was younger, I thought that was a negative comment when I heard it. Now it's like, well, yeah, they do. I mean, it's their kid. You know, if you have
Right.
kids, you understand that. You want your kid to get whatever they want. What it's your job as a coach is to convince them and explain to them or show them that that is fine, that they think that, but you can't. You know, you have to feel this way. So when a parent problem does arise, so now you've done all that good things. You guys have had deep playoff runs. You've won the region championships. You've done all these good things in the community. So somebody from the outside might think, well, who could be mad at this guy? Well, there's going to be somebody. So just be ready. Even though all that good stuff, there's still going to be issues. There's always going to be. If you think there won't, find the most successful coach in the state, they still got issues. So when an issue happens, what can you do to help it? And so from talking to people like you and dealing with it myself and whatever, when we studied this, these were the 5 things that kept coming up on how to handle a situation right versus wrong. Because there's not always a wrong answer or a right answer, but there is a way where you made the situation worse. So parents frustrated, you've done all these things, parents still frustrated. What do? You can't make it worse. You got to try to make it better. Now, it's their choice to accept the making it better, but you got to try. So these things came up. Confront, don't hide, meaning don't like avoid them or not call them back or whatever. Like, you say, hey, what's the problem? You know,
Right.
Have your expectations. If you got a 24-hour rule, or if you say we're not going to talk about playing time or whatever your program's personal rules are, then enforce those, but don't hide from the person. Let them know, hey, I got you. I heard your message. I'm not ashamed to talk to you. I'm not scared to talk to you. Here's how we're going to do it. You know, confront the problem. Be fair and consistent, meaning don't say the same thing, 24-hour rule, and then don't do it with somebody or something. You know, be fair and consistent with whatever you put in place to how you're going to handle it. But the thing we're talking about now is see it from their perspective. It doesn't mean that you have to give in. You don't have to give in. I hope actually you've established your policies where you don't give in, but you got to see it from their perspective. You got to say, hey, if my daughter was the second best center fielder and our starting center fielder is all region player, great player, I would be frustrated too. You know, I mean, I would understand that. So see it from their perspective. Say, be sympathetic when you're talking to them. It doesn't mean you got to change your opinion. But what are some things you do in those things when you have to deal with an issue?
Well, the biggest thing is, and it's, you know, and you might like this, Coach Parker, is a guy we used to work with at Chapel Hill, who's one of the best things that I think I've ever gotten from another coach. Is falls right in line with exactly what we're talking about right now, and I've used it for the last 9 years, and it works. It works. So if there's any young coaches out there listening to this, or they tune in later, follow these 3 things, and I promise you, it will make your life easier. It'll make your program run better. Parents understand; they know the expectations. All right, there's 3 things we will not discuss. All right, I will not discuss with a parent. I'm not going to. But I will, if you want to have a conversation, talk about how your kid can get better at their craft and to try to get on the field. Number 2, we're not going to discuss another kid on the team. I'm not going to discuss another kid on the team with you. That's between me and their parents, not between me and you. And lastly, we're not going to discuss my coaching philosophy and my staff's philosophy. You know, that's something that, you know, that the administration put their faith in me and the staff to guide and lead the program, and that's between me and the staff. So those 3 things right there, we're not going to discuss with the parents. And then there's that 24-hour rule, whereas, you know, after a game, whether it be win or lose, even, you know, discuss the game. And I'm not going to not talk to parents after the game about just anything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we can talk about, you know, how the game went and laugh about this and whoever fell down in the field and somebody, you know, third base box with a foul ball, you know, stuff like that. But as far as it getting into playing time and what we need to do to get better and, you know, what my kid needs, we're not going to discuss that with it right after a ball game, because Typically, emotions are at the highest point at that time. And everybody needs a clear head when they're discussing their kid. And a parent, the last thing they want to do, the very last thing they want to do is to go in there and have a conversation with the coach when they're emotional, and they're going to damage their kids playing probably in the future. Quite honestly, if they come in there irate and yelling and making a scene, that's putting their kid in a bad situation.
Well, they don't want to embarrass their kid. They really don't. They just lose their temper. They don't purposely want to embarrass their kid. But
that's right. They don't. And it happens. It's happened. It's, all these measures, these preemptive strikes are in place for that reason. Is to protect the kid, is to protect the parents as well. And it's kind of just, it helps everybody save face. So, and then it presents a problem to administration as well, which they don't want to deal with. If there's an issue in the program anywhere or whatever you think there needs to be improvements, that needs to be discussed between the coach and the other adult. Plain and simple. It can be easily solved that way, and it doesn't have to be a screaming match. It doesn't have to be. We can sit down and talk about this like two adults. Do you have to agree with me? No, you don't. Do I have to agree with you? No, I don't. And sometimes there's there's two things that can happen here. There's either we're going to agree to disagree, or we can compromise. And it happens throughout a season, throughout a career, over multiple seasons. It happens a few times in a season. And I'm always open to new ideas. I'm not that guy. I didn't get to where I'm at and had the success I had on my own. That's crazy. I've done this and picked apart things from you. I've taken things from Coach Jim Gaylor. I've taken things from Mick Harper. There's things. Jamie Monroe's been by my side for 9 seasons. I've learned a tremendous amount from her. I've learned from different administrators. I've learned all these different things from, and stuff like we're doing right now, which is really.
To recap that for people listening that are probably maybe taking a note or something that's not on here, what Coach said was, if you're going to instill some rules in your program, and by the way, I completely agree with this, take 3 things and make sure parents understand them, which is don't talk about playing time, don't talk about other people's kids, and don't talk about the scheme. Now, I think that's fantastic. That's the exact same rules that I used as a head football coach. But I think it goes back to the thing before, seeing it from their perspective, which is make sure that you've communicated. Don't say that off the cuff, and make sure you've told them in the good time at the parent meeting when everybody's happy. Hey, this is how it's going to be. I know some of y'all not going to be so happy when it gets into the season. And as much as I love you, we're going to have to follow these 3 rules. And then when the assistant principal's kid, or when your buddy that you fish with, his kid, you got to kind of be like, hey, man, I love you. I fish with you, but I can't talk to you about these 3 things.
Right.
Because what I see is people coming up with these rules, and then they do them with the people they don't know. And then it becomes even worse. Them coming up with a rule made it worse than if they'd have had no rule at all, because people just use it against them. So make sure whatever rules you come up with are easily enforceable. And those 3 are. They really are. I mean, I've had principals' kids play. I've had all, and we haven't had an issue. Board members' kids play. We've had all this. You just stay consistent, because they knew I really wasn't going to talk to anybody about that. It wasn't just them. And so that kind of goes away. And of course, once you take those 3 things off the table, a lot of times parents ain't got a whole lot to talk about, to be honest.
Well, at that point, you're right. No, at that point, really, that's exactly what it is. And here's another thing too that this boils into. All right, there's roles in the program, right? And I may be it pertains, but it may slide off topic real quick. But there's everybody's got a role in the program. Let the coaches coach, let the players play, and let the parents boost. All right, those are what I go by in my program. And the parents' job is to boost. That's all they're there to do. You're there to boost either spiritually, you're there to boost financially, you're there to boost with your time, You're there to, you know, whatever that you can bring to the table, that is the parent's job, is to boost.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like I said, when you talk about what we were just talking about, that's if they know, you know, your role at that point. And if you're fair and consistent, you gave them the expectations up front, especially at the parent meeting, which is the best time to do that. Like you said, you know, you lay it all out there. And if you're fair and consistent, the parents will get on board. They will get on board. And if they know their role, look, your parents, and I've already talked to my parents, so, you know, the ones that are returning anyway. I haven't had to get to sit down and do the big parent meeting with everybody that's going to be on the current team this year. But that's the biggest thing. Enjoy the game. You know, love the game. Your kid only has this opportunity for 4 years. All right, it's 4 years of their entire life. Okay, enjoy it. Prop your chair up, kick your feet up, and be excited about the game and watching the kids play. Whether it be your kid, I mean, that's to be determined. You know, that's never a given. So you know, enjoy the game and boost is all the parents are there to do. And if everybody follows that policy, it makes everything so much smoother and enjoyable for everybody, and especially their kid. And that's, at the end of the day, I hope, while they're there for their kid, not for anyone else. So you can see where that's going.
Absolutely. Well, these last two things on here, I think are real pivot, or real, they're just important. I didn't think of a better word than that. And I think there's something that a lot of coaches don't know. I don't think I did any earth-shattering study when I said confront, don't hide, be fair and consistent, and seeing it from their perspective. I don't think that was earth-shattering. I do think these bottom two things were things that I did that I know work. And I see other people doing them too, but I firsthand know. And here's what I mean when I say promote the preemptive and stay kind regardless. So remember, if you look on the left side of the screen, it says when a parent problem arises. So parents mad, whatever reason, they want to talk about it. You're not going to talk about playing time. We're not going to talk about other kids, all that. What you start telling them is, this was what I would go to. I'd immediately go to, hey, you know, I love Johnny. Johnny's a great guy, man. Let's remember last year when we put Johnny up there for making all A's. And just last week, I gave him a helmet sticker for his work with the scout team. And, you know, a couple of days ago, I talked to him about how he was doing. Now, you got to do all those things. But promote.
Right.
Remember the whole point, the first part of this talk was do some stuff ahead of time to help yourself. When you're doing all those things, or somebody comes in and says, Coach Graham doesn't care anything except about winning. You say, well, I saw Coach Graham spending hours and hours working with teachers on superhero T-shirts. That didn't have anything to do with winning. You know, so like you're promoting the preemptive stuff. You're promoting the stuff you did ahead of time. And you say to them, hey, you know, we only are going to play 5 offensive linemen, and your kid's about the 7th best one. It doesn't mean he's the 7th best human. Doesn't mean we like him the 7th best. It means he's the 7th best offensive lineman. So that's not going to change. And if you don't trust my opinion on that, then we just have to agree to disagree, because it's my full-time job to know who's the best offensive lineman. But I can love all of them the same. They make all A's. Right. They all get treated equal. They all get their name put up on their birthday, and we recognize the kids that give great effort, and we recognize, we're already doing all that. So we love your kid. We got no problem with him. Maybe you got a problem or he's got a problem, but I got no problem with him. I love him. He just ain't going to play till he's the best one, and I gave some speeches like that over the years. And a lot of times it actually does diffuse about half of it, not all of it, but about half of the diffusion happens when they see you're not really fighting them or arguing with them. You're like, look, I like you, kid. What are you talking about? There's just nothing to argue. And then the last thing is and you know me personally, so if we're just arguing, then I might kind of can be a pain in the ass with the best of them. But in this particular incident, I would always stay kind, meaning they get as mad as they want to, and I'd be like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Again, I got no problem with your kid. Looking forward to working with him. If you guys let him be on the team, if you don't, that's fine. But wish you would. Really enjoy working with you. I mean, what does it hurt? Getting frustrated back actually just brings you right down onto that level where now you're in this back and forth, and you're not going to win, and nothing positive going to come out of it. I liked what you said earlier when you said either anytime you get in an issue like this, either you're going to kind of get your way, I guess, change their mind, or you're going to compromise, or we're going to agree to disagree. Those are the three choices. So
Right.
once you've realized they're not going to see my point of view on this, they haven't brought in anything that made you want to compromise. At that point, you're just going to agree to disagree. Why does it matter if you put them in their place, or you get ugly too, or say something you shouldn't have said, or get mad, or raise your voice? You're still just going to agree to disagree. And now you've got to deal with all this other crap that came with you raising your voice or you getting frustrated, because then, of course, they're going to use that against you too. So I just try to stay real nice, and that, just be honest with you, staying real nice makes them as mad as anything, because they kind of want
Well,
you to get mad.
Well, that's true, and at the same time, when you're talking about all that, and it's you get heated or you lose your cool or whatever, and which I've done before, which I don't do much of anymore, because I'm like you, I just try to stay calm and kind about it. The problem that lies with me in these circumstances is there are kids in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to bring back up. You're here because you're upset or you're butthurt. Your kid's probably not. I would say 8 times out of 10, the kid's probably happy with where they're at, and they understand their role in the team, because I make sure that they know that. I make sure they know their role in their team, and I'm telling you, 8 or 9 times out of 10, they're happy with it. It's the parent that's not, and they're bringing their kid into the middle of it, and that's not fair to them.
Wouldn't you think, Coach, that
I was making a point to say that
one of the things people can do is, and I didn't always do this, and I'll be honest before I say this, I'm like you. I have not always done all these things, by the way. I learned the hard way sometimes. I'm not trying to preach like I had made a mistake. But this is what I've learned the hard way a few times. And I didn't always do this, but I wished I would have. I always didn't talk about playing time, didn't all the stuff we said. But I think the kid ought to be in there.
Yes.
If they want to talk, bring the kids, sit them in there with you. I didn't always do that. I did it a lot, but I wish I would have. I don't ever remember bringing the kid in and regretting I did, if that makes sense. You put the kid in there and you say, hey, bud, tell me if you got a problem. I mean, I felt like I worked for these kids. I didn't work for their moms. I worked for the kid. I will work with their mom, but I don't work for them. I work for the kids. So bring the kid in, because like you said, it just reminded me of that when you said, so many times the kids actually don't have a problem. They kind of understand where they are. They know if they're the 7th best offensive lineman. They're not. It's not a secret to them that they're the 7th best offensive lineman. That it's a secret to their parents. So you sit them in there and you say, now, what are we doing wrong to you, son? And sometimes that can put a kid in a bad spot, and I don't love that aspect of it. But I do think you're working for these kids. If they really feel that way, I would have seen that as a problem. If a kid really felt like we were doing them wrong and not giving them a fair chance, I would have been upset about that. I wasn't upset about somebody's mom saying that, but I would have been upset about a kid genuinely thinking that. So, I think that's some good advice maybe for a young coach is, if at all possible, try to get all of you in the same room. So there's no he said, she said kind of stuff. Put them all in there. Let's talk about what happened. When you agree with that?
Absolutely. And and I agree and disagree with you a little bit, for the simple fact, I don't know if I would bring the kid in every single time.
Yeah.
Different circumstances. There are different scenarios where I think the kid needs to be present for sure. And then there's some that they don't probably need to be in there.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I've done both. There's times that I wish the kid had been in there. But like you said just a minute ago, there's never been a time that I regretted the kid not being in there. So, that's one of those things you just gotta, you gotta play it out and think about that ahead of time, especially if you're having a pre-planned meeting with a parent and they're coming in and there's a time set and they're coming in and you go sit down with them and y'all going to talk. If you know what the topic's going to be about, if you have a pretty good idea, well, the kid, you can make your judgment at that time.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right about that. I mean, there's no There's no absolutes in that, obviously. But I just think when there's issues, sometimes we just go down a rabbit hole of something that's not even accurate, not even close to accurate. And if the kid can kind of set that straight,
Right.
because they're the person that's talking to both parties. But I agree. There, of course, in some extreme circumstances or some kind of real sensitive topics, and the kid don't. So what are some other things that? Oh, sorry, I think I interrupted you there. What were you saying, Coach?
Yeah, no, that's good. Well,
Um,
I was actually just gonna bring up a conversation that I've had before, and I had the player in my office with me and the parent, and to be honest with you, I might have said about 1 minute's worth of stuff. I let the kid talk, the parent heard their kid, and then I heard the parent go, "Sorry, Coach, I wasted your time. I probably should have just had this conversation at home." And typically that's the way it goes. They just didn't listen to what their kid had to say or their kid's feelings on the whole, whatever the situation was.
right.
So that's happened before too. So, a note for parents here, if any parents see this, make sure you're communicating with your children first.
Absolutely.
Before anything else.
Absolutely. I mean, but I think what you just told is a great story, by the way. People need to hear stuff like that because I believe nobody has zero parent issues. Nobody, but there is a way to work with parents where you can have significantly less. And if you handled it correctly, you will have significantly less. And
Right.
that's a way where, like I said, you said a minute's worth, the kid talked, we went on, something that could have been a big blow up for the whole season. Took you 30 minutes, it was handled, we moved on to the next thing. That handling things properly ahead of time, being that preemptive, is so important. And you only have so much time, and you trying to go to Columbus and play softball in the final 8, you ain't got time to worry about all this other stuff. And all it does is just suck energy and distract you from what really is important. So what are some other things you guys do that is there anything we hadn't talked about that you guys do that would promote positive parent relationships?
Yeah, I mean, one more thing I'd add to that to bring that in is, involved. Get them involved. Their job's there to boost and bring morale into the program. That's a big part of this. You don't need a negative Nancy or a Debbie Downer in this thing or whatever have you. You can name it what you want, but have jobs for those parents. Get some of those dads out there that love being outside and working in the yard. All right, take that to your advantage and have them have a little grounds crew out there and have them help you on the field, and they're going to take pride in that. And that's a preemptive move, so to speak, because they're involved. They feel like they're helping the program. Have the concession stands and duties and all these different things. Have them involved on these senior nights and all these special nights that you have on the field. That it gives some importance, and it gives them a sense of pride, and as it does me. So with all that being said, they have a job and they feel like they're a part of it. And, you don't want anybody to feel distant. You don't want anybody to feel like they don't have a voice. And if they're involved and they're doing these things, they feel like they're a part of it. And that's a big part of this whole piece. I mean, for it all coming together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great advice there. Hey, I love this next question when I ask it to everybody because I just think it could be about parent issues. It could be about something else. But I just think we learn so much more from messing up than we do from doing well, unfortunately. So when's the time you made a mistake or you handled something and you look back and say, I really wished I'd have handled it differently?
The first thing that comes to my mind, this was a few years ago. We were on the road. We were playing in a big non-region game, but it always was a game every year that we were able to see really good competition. And we were in a game, and it was a tight game versus a really good team. There's a one-run game late, going in late into a game, and I made a pitching change, which I felt like in the game was the right thing to do. It turned out on the parent side of things that probably wasn't the best idea in their mind. And after the game, they approached me, which is why we talked about earlier about the 24-hour rule. This is kind of when this came into play for me. And they were heated about my choice, my decision. And I didn't take too likely to their comments, and I didn't say some things that were very nice. I lost my cool. I regret the whole thing. I regret everything I said. But it was a huge learning experience for me, and I thought about that all the way home. And that, so to speak, if we've got something we need to talk about, we need to let the emotion, we need to take the emotion out of it, and then just get back down to, let's talk like adults and stay kind. That's my biggest regret. That taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. It actually, it prevented many other bad conversations that could have happened in the future.
Well, and I think that's what's great about that question, and I appreciate you sharing that, because one, it just shows the point that we do better. We learn lessons from messing up, and you took something that was negative and turned it into a rule you've used for several years later that's been helpful for you. So, that happens. Two, I think it's important that people listening to all this stuff I'm putting out there is understanding we're not preaching it, folks. We're not saying we didn't mess up. We're not, learn from these mistakes. We made some too. And everybody here's going to make mistakes. You're going to make some more. What people do is they're bad about taking a mistake and turning it into 2 and 3 and 4 mistakes. The story you just told took a mistake and turned it into something positive for the next group of kids and parents and whatever you work with. So, I just think that is great advice for anybody just starting out, or hell, anybody that's old like me. I mean, everybody needs to hear that stuff. What advice?
The biggest thing there.
Go
Sorry,
ahead,
Coach.
No, go ahead.
One of the biggest things there too is when we're talking about that, and you learn from your mistakes. And yeah, like you said, we're going to screw up. I screw up more than I get it right, probably half the time. But the biggest thing in that, I think, and this may be going into one of your next questions, is some advice you'd give to aspiring coaches and things like that. But one of the things, and I actually made a list of 7, but when you get in that situation and you have screwed up, you got to have a sense of humility. Okay. You got to be humble. You got to understand, be a coach's side. You got to understand the administrator side in all this. And you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to have some humility. You got to admit when you screw up. I do it all the time. I get somebody thrown out at third base with 2 outs, and I'm waved them on, and I'm like, crap, I shouldn't have done that. And yeah, they got thrown out. I'm coming off the field. That's on me. Stick my hand. Yeah, that was me. You gotta have a little humility in this too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So true. And I think that's great advice for anybody that wants to be a head coach or currently is one. Coach, I really appreciate you joining us. Some good stuff. Hopefully helped out some people. And tell anybody listening where they can find you if they have a question. Tell them your Twitter handle or anything like that. You want them where they can reach out if they got anything for you.
Well, you can always you can email me. My new email address is going to be at Oconee County. It's going to be zgraham at Oconee County. At oconeeschools.org. You can follow me on Twitter. Let me make sure I get the Twitter handle right. You can follow me on Twitter at OCHS Fast Pitch. I had a lot of followers in the past on my Alexander account, which was at Fast Pitch AHS. I will make a couple more posts on that account in the future. But when I hope my assistant gets named the head coach to replace me, I'm gonna make a final post on that account, and I'll turn it over to her, and then I'll solely be at the OCHS account at OCHS Fast Pitch. You should be able to follow any happenings with OCA stuff out there about my kids, about the program, and things like you're talking about now. You and I have shared a lot of stuff via social media, via Twitter, that I think are good for coaches to know. And even if you don't know, sometimes it's just a reminder.
That's right.
I forgot that, I do that, but I could do it this way or whatever. So I think the social media aspect to our coaching and responsibilities is big, because we can learn a lot from each other.
Absolutely. These people got it made now, man. I mean, I'm trying to be another avenue for it, but we got it made now. No excuse to not be out there learning. There's just so many resources out there to learn from that we didn't have back in our day, did we?
Well, there's no doubt about that, Coach. I mean, we used to have to learn from a book that was too expensive to buy.
Yeah, people don't even know what that is now. We got to turn around. I just put these up here for decoration.
That's for decoration. You ain't reading them things. I know you ain't.
It's been a long time. I might have read them at some point, but it's been a long time. There ain't many new books up there. Let's put it that way.
We can discuss whatever we want, but I want to make sure that everybody knows what you're doing here, how important this is, and some of these conversations you're having with all these coaches, and your parkerresources.com is really is a neat tool for a lot of people, and people need to jump on board and get with that, man. What you're doing is you're providing a service to a lot of people, and what you're doing is pretty cool, man. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It came at a good time for me. I took his HR director job, which I love doing. It's been great moving up kind of at the central office and all, but it was the first time in 20 years I hadn't really been involved with sports. So it was just literally within the first week of doing that, this kind of just took off. I didn't plan it. It just really did kind of take off. And, just kind of the Lord put me in a spot to, be able to stay involved, but still do what I needed to do to take care of my family and move up in this other role too. So hopefully it's been helpful to some people, but I've been very blessed to have some good friends like you that'll come in and help me some. So appreciate you, Coach. And if I can do anything for you, let me know.
Yes, sir. You do the same. And anytime that you want to do this again or on a different topic, I'd be glad to share my perspective and my experiences.
Absolutely.